Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Lisa Richardson.
And I'm Will Ware. I'm with WHHI-TV. We're coming to you today from Spring Island. We're actually on the community dock here, one of the community docks along the WHHI Creek, and an absolutely gorgeous day.
Absolutely. Joining us today, our first guest is Chris Marsh, the Executive Director of Spring Island Trust.
We're also joined by John Strother, broker in charge for Spring Island Realty. So stick around for more 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.
Where Hilton Head Island comes to speak.
Where Beaufort comes to speak.
.843 TV.
Where communities come to speak. Joining us today.
Great to be here.
So we're here on like a picture-perfect day at a community dock right along the WHHI Creek, and on Spring.
To live in harmony with nature here, to be good stewards of the natural resources on this island. We've got 12 different types of habitats. We just got a great variety of nature and nature experiences here. So that's our role, is to help people embrace that and understand what their role is.
No, absolutely, and I imagine, John, when people first come to the island, that's one of the first things that they've got to recognize, right?
Well, you do. You can't miss it when you come on. It's you either love it or hate it. The Master Naturalist program, that's done in cooperation with Clemson, isn't it?
That's correct.
And, I met a guy.
Back in the 1990s, and as people learned about them, they wanted to come and help more. So they check the bluebird boxes once a week during the whole season, and people, by being that close, really get a chance to learn the cycle of nature, watch the babies grow up, see what happens to that box. And for many people, it's a very simple way to go from not knowing anything about nature to becoming a sort of an expert on one thing, and people really enjoy that. All the data goes into the Cornell lab, so it becomes part of a national database, and I believe we have the largest bluebird database for any community in the country.
Wow.
With boxes, we do surveys for birds. We actually, people learn about surveying alligators at night. We have, we condition our alligators for people to be engaged in the study of nature, as well as just being observers.
Chris, that's very educational and certainly very interesting. Stay right with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more 843 TV. Welcome back to 843 TV here on the beautiful Spring Island dock, and John and Chris are sharing with us all about the island. And Chris, we were talking about the nature program and all the different things, the ecosystems. Tell us a little bit more and continue with that as far as what you've got to offer, how that plays into the life of a resident here.
When people move here, many of them have had a very busy life in terms of in an urban setting. Spent much of their time engaged with whether it's raising children or just careers. And so when you come here, or when you start anew, so to speak, you're looking for something that brings variety. And they get to do a lot of discoveries on their own, but to do that, you need somebody to show you, just like with learning a new sport or anything else. And so, as I mentioned to you before, we have the Master Naturalist program that we do for the community at large, which includes people beyond the boundaries of Spring Island. But we also do a whole series of nature programs specifically for Spring Island members, whether they are morning trips out with Tony Mills, our education director who does our TV show, Coastal Kingdom, or Kristen Matson, who's one of our other environmental educators who really loves teaching people about astronomy as well as plants. We also do programs after dark, where we're showing people owls and other nocturnal life. So through all these different sorts of experiences, people start seeing the world differently around them. And when you live on Spring Island, so much of that is in your backyard, or you see it when...
In particular, but it's part of this greater area we call the Low Country. And we're really surrounded by one of the greatest salt marshes.
As a community, is that the Spring Island Trust takes groups of people up for nature experiences up in this Ace Basin, as the area is referred to the south of us. And we take people, for example, to Little St. Simon's Island. 32 people went with us for 3 days down there. And then to the west of us, we have the Savannah River drainage, and it's got 165,000 acres that's preserved of river swamp. And so no matter which direction you go here, there's large undeveloped areas that will be protected for centuries, we hope, to come, but for many generations. And so it's just a great place to spend time. And nestled within that, we've got Savannah and Charleston, which are two of the most special historic cities to visit in the country.
Welcome back to 843 TV. We're now joined by John Strother, broker in charge of Spring Island Realty. John, thanks again for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We love coming out here, and apparently so do a lot of the national publications.
Yeah.
It seems like every time I look at a magazine or a newspaper, the Low Country is featured as one of the top places to come visit or live. Have you experienced the same?
I know, it's amazing. We get so many calls from people that have seen us or, seen this area. Like Travel and Leisure magazine, Charleston was just voted the #1 city in the world and in the United States as a subsection. Savannah was #8, so that's come so far in the past 25, 30 years.
It sure has.
And both of them are just absolutely beautiful pictures of, 18th century cities. And Beaufort Southern Living has called that one of the top 5 small southern towns, which is just an incredible 300-year-old town. And then Hilton Head, Travel and Leisure, named it the #1 island in the country and #8 in the world. So, you've lived here a long time. I have, as have you, and you start to look at this as like same old, same old.
Right.
But when people come and look at it with fresh eyes, it's just really an amazing spot with so many opportunities exploding. Old town.
Yeah, absolutely has. Now, amongst all that, Spring Island has gotten a little accolades itself from one of my favorite, Coastal Living. Tell us about that.
I know, we're so lucky. In this month's Coastal Living magazine, they featured one of our homes. One of our members, he had bought 2 lots on the Carlton River and had a dock. It had these beautiful oak trees, and it was a narrow, long lot. And so Historical Concepts from Atlanta, he worked with them, and Jay Banks on Hilton Head on the interior design. You pull in, it looks so modest, and it has these long dog trots to the main house, to the guest house, to the carriage house with Charles's man cave above that. I mean, it's just a really beautiful, beautiful home. And Golf Week has named Old Tabby Links, our golf course here. It's a very private course. There's we only have 400 total members, as one of the top 100 modern courses in the world. Wow. Not the state, but the world.
Yeah.
And one of the top 30 private residential courses in the country. But ours is so special, and it's just really nice that our members have that as a component to their experience here. You can go out and enjoy nature all day long and go out and play our golf course, and it's so unique in the sense that it's such a big course and it's like a walk in nature. There are very few houses on it, and it's just an amazing piece of art.
Absolutely. Now, John, we usually reserve this section of the show to talk about specific home sites and available homes, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. I'm always interested in here, and we talked a little bit about the Low Country Rambler and how these designs kind of blend in with the natural setting here in Spring Island. I'm excited to hear about a sprawling design that an architect in Beaufort helped design. Is that correct?
Yes, Frederick and Frederick. Just a great firm, a husband and wife firm, and they really get involved in each person's individual likes and design the house around that. But the people that people bought this 4.5 acre lot on Pole Creek. beautiful house. They all talked about what kind of experience do you want here. So it gives people an opportunity to build their dream home, their true dream home. And then you get, so they had 4 firms. They told them all the things that they liked. They all came back with their interpretations of that. And Frederick came back with one that called out to the past of Beaufort County and of Spring Island, in the sense that tabby walls were used predominantly through it, which reflect the old tabby ruins here. Round brick columns, which were used at Sheldon Church, the old Sheldon Church outside of Beaufort, and here on the first golf clubhouse that we had here.
Okay.
So you drive in, there's the carriage house, there's a low wall, a tabby wall. You walk in this courtyard, a garden shed over here. There's a guest house over here overlooking the pond, a 2-story guest house, this sprawling house with 4 over 4 window experience.
Really cool. Sounds like a kind of a blank canvas to build your dream home.
It is. It really is.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to come out here. And thank you for watching 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.